dimensions. So just like sketch relations, dimensions can also constrain your drawing. So they can add restrictions so that your drawing becomes fully constrained. So in this case, you can apply dimension using this smart dimension tool right here, or you can just expand it just by clicking here and select any of these dimension tools. So in this case, I will select a smart dimension because using this smart dimension, we can apply almost any of these dimension types. So select a smart dimension, and now I'll start with this line. So I'll click here, and now look at this. It will just apply the dimension from this point to this point. Now if I click OK, it will just select this value, whatever this is, but in this case I don't want that, so I'll just cancel this out. And now I'll just select it and I'll delete this, and I'll apply it again. So I'll go to this smart dimension. Now I'll select this line, and this time I'll also select this line. Alright, and now it will show you the distance between these two lines. So right now it's 24.99. Just click, and once again we have the same. This time let's change the dimension. So I'll just make it maybe 25 and press enter. Now this distance is 25 unit. In a similar way, you can apply more dimensions. For example, if you go to the circle and apply the dimension, it will add the diameter automatically. Now when I move this dimension close to the circle, you'll notice that the diameter type here will change. Now we have two parallel extension lines, but if I move further away from this, it will just become something like this. Now if you want to keep the type of dimension fixed, then simply move away from your circle or any of the geometry and then right click. When you right click, this padlock icon will change, and now no matter how far you move away from your drawing, you'll still have this parallel extension line no matter where you go. So it kind of locks your dimension. Now right click again to just unlock it, and now once again it's free to move. So I'll just add this here, and I will type the diameter of 20 and press enter. Now if you apply the dimension on this arc, it will add radius. So I'll click here and I'll use 10 unit arc value. Alright, and I'll just press escape key. Now in this case, let's apply the dimension between this circle and this. For that, I'll select this circle and then I'll select this circle. And when we do that, look at this, it will apply the dimension between the center of these two circles. But once again, in this case, the dimension is applied horizontally, but if I move further away from this along this direction, look at this, the dimension will become inclined. Now if you don't want that, if you want to keep your dimension locked to the horizontal direction, just right click. And once again it is locked. No matter how far you move away from this, it will always remain horizontal, and you can just apply it. So I'll just type 40 and enter. Alright, now what if you need dimension from circumference of a circle to the circumference of the second circle? Now in that case, well, you need to change the workflow. So I'll select this dimension and I'll delete it. And I'll go to smart dimension again, and I will now shift select my first circle. So press and hold your shift key and then click on the first circle. Once again, shift select the second circle. And now look at this, we have the dimension from circumference to circumference. In this case, I just clicked close to these 2 points, so I have the dimension connecting these two close points. But if, however, you want your dimension from this point to, let's say, this point, then you need to change your clicks. So I'll do that. I'll press escape a couple of times, and now once again I'll go to smart dimension. So I'll select this one, but make sure that you have shift key pressed before you are selecting this. So I'll press and hold my shift key, then I'll click here, and now I'll click here close to this point, and we have the dimension connecting these 2 points. There we have it. So I'll click, and that's the dimension. Now once again I'll select this and I'll delete it. Now as you add dimensions in your drawing will start converting into black color. So in this case, this line is black, but not all the other lines, they are still blue. Now if you add more and more dimensions, for example, I'll go to smart dimension and I'll add a dimension here, which will be the angle. So I'll just add this, and here also you can just move your cursor to the other direction to add angle in that direction. So I'm happy with this one, so I'll just add it here. And in a similar way, I'll add more dimensions to this so that the drawing becomes close to being a constrained drawing. So I'll select now this line and this line, and just okay. So I'm just accepting the default values here. So this and this, and well, here it is. Now the drawing is very close to being constrained, but it's still not fully constrained. All right, now it looks like the outer geometry is constrained, but not these two circles. So we've got to constrain it. So I'll select this point and this point, the circle. All right, that is done. Now from this point to this point, all right, that is done. And now this radius is missing. So well, diameter, that's also fine. And finally the distance between these two. All right, now that seemed to have not worked, so we still need just one more dimension, and that is the vertical distance from these two. And that looks like it just over constrained it. So now in this case, you can press escape key a couple of times so that the smart dimension is completely deselected, and now you can grab your geometry and move it. You can move it to check the degrees of freedom where this dimension is moving. So as you can see, in this case, the circle is moving freely along the horizontal direction. So that is the only direction where I just need to constrain it. So to do that, I'll just go to smart dimension. I'll select maybe this center and this line, and I'll add the final dimension, which will make it fully constrained. Now once your drawing is fully constrained or fully defined, you will see that it will turn completely black in color, and also on the status bar you'll see this fully defined. Now if I delete any dimension here, maybe this one, I'll select and delete, that fully defined option will change to underdefined. So that's how you can identify if your drawing is fully constrained or not. Now as you can see, it took some time to just constrain it fully. Now you can do that very quickly using auto constrain as well. So I'll just delete all of these dimensions. All right, now all the dimensions are gone, and now I'll apply the dimensions automatically using this option right here. So right here we have a fully defined sketch option selected, and now you can select the option to define it fully. So if you have multiple sketches, you can select all sketch entities, or if you want to select few entities from your sketch, then select the second option and select the sketches that you want to fully define. In this case, I have many sketches and I want to define it completely. So I'll select the first option and I'll click on this green check mark, and there we have it. It just defined it fully, and it will automatically add the dimensions to do so. And once again, it is fully defined. So you can use this option as well. So I'll press Ctrl Z to get back to this, and that was the overview of dimensions. In the previous example, we learned to add the dimensions. Now let's talk about modifying the dimensions. So I'll go to Smart Dimension, and I'll add the first dimension here between these two lines. All right, so here it is. I'll just click OK to accept the dimension value. Now after adding the dimension, you can still add more dimensions. As you can see, the command is still active. This is highlighted. Smart dimension is still active, and in the properties manager we still have the dimension tools visible, which means we can use the dimension even now. So you can continue adding more dimensions like this, and all you've got to do is just select the sketches, and more dimensions will be added here. Now in order to exit this, you need to press escape key. Now in some situations you may need to press escape key more than once, because if you press escape key once, it will just remove selection from your dimension, but still the command will be active. So you may need to press escape key at least 2 to 3 times in order to completely exit out of this smart dimension. Now so far we have used dimensions using this smart dimension tool, but if you expand the panel, you'll see all the other dimension tools as well. So let's see what these tools can do. So first one is horizontal dimension, and using this you can add only horizontal dimensions even when the lines are not horizontal. For example, this one. So I'll select this slant line, and now look at this, it will only add the horizontal dimension. Even when I move it here or maybe parallel to this, it's still going to add the horizontal dimension. In a similar way, if I go to vertical dimension and select the same line, it will only add the vertical dimension. So no matter where I place it. Then we have the baseline dimension. Now before I add this, I will delete some of the existing dimensions. So I'll press escape a couple of times and I'll delete these and maybe this and this dimension too. So the baseline dimension will look like this. So I'll first click on this point and then I'll select this point right here. So the first dimension is added. Now to add the second dimension, all I need to do is click on the next point and then again next point, and there we have it. So this is baseline dimension, where all the dimensions will start from the first baseline which I selected, and it will add dimensions kind of like this. So let's select it and delete it. Now I'll go to smart dimension, and this time I'll select chain dimension. So once again the workflow is almost similar. So I'll select the first point, then second point, and we have the first dimension. Now if I select the next points, it will just add dimensions like this in a chain, so one after another. So again I'll press escape and I'll select and delete the dimension. Then we have the ordinate dimension, and using ordinate dimension you can start your dimension from origin. So here is the origin. I'll click and I'll place this first ordinate, then with respect to that ordinate we can add all the other coordinate values. So in this case it is kind of like the base dimension, because all the measurement is happening from this base point. So this is 21.25 from here, 42 from here, 65 from here. So kind of like baseline, but the way it has been dimensioned is different. This ordinate dimension is also available for horizontal and vertical dimensions separately. So this one was horizontal. Now I'll select vertical ordinate dimension, and again I'm gonna start with this. So that's the first point, and then the second one, then the third one, and the fourth, and so on. So this is going to add it in vertical direction. So this option will let you add in both the direction, horizontal or vertical, depending on your selection. And that's what these things are. So as you can see, we may never use these dimensions because the smart dimension is just sufficient, and only using this smart dimension you can add almost every single kind of these dimensions. So in this case I'll just delete it all. And I'll go to this smart dimension again, and now I'll add the dimension one more time. Now let's see what else we have in dimensions. So that's the first dimension. Let's add one more here. All right, so we have two dimensions now. Now if you select any of these dimensions, for example I'll select this, then in the property manager you will see all the properties of that dimension. Now these properties are also divided into three tabs: the value tab, leader tab, and other. Value tab is all about the numbers here, all the dimension related information. So for example, the name of this dimension is D1 at sketch 1. So that name is right here. So if you want to change this, so you can do that here. So just type it, so vertical, and now its name has changed. So if you go to this dimension now, it will show you the vertical dimension at sketch 1. Now the dimension here is using the precision as well as unit from the template. So it will automatically pull those values from the template, but if you want to change that, then you can change it here. For example, you can add a tolerance value if you want to add that. You can change the precision from here, maybe up to 4 decimal places, though you should not do that. You should try to keep the dimension precision consistent and try to keep it as per the template. But if you want to do that, well, there you have the option. So I'll change it back to just 2 decimal places. Now I'll go to leader, and here you can change settings, like you can change the direction of arrow. So right now this smart option is selected, which will allow SolidWorks to select the direction of arrow automatically. In this case the arrow is inside, so if I select this, the arrow will go outside. This one is inside, and well, this is smart, so SolidWorks will pick the right direction. This is the arrow type. Right now we have the solid filled arrow here. If you want this hollow arrow, select this. Now the arrow is hollow. So I'll change it back to the solid arrow. Now if you want to change the line type here, so that's for the leader line, then uncheck this, and here you can change the line type of this dimension line. So I'll just change it to this one, and you can see the changes here. You can even make it thick if you want to. So though I don't recommend that, I'll just change it back to the defaults, and I'll click this box to use the default document related settings. So whatever the template has, it will use the same settings. The same option is with the extension line. So these are the extension line. You can change that. So uncheck and change it from here, and will change the properties of the extension line. I'll once again check the document settings. Finally, let's go to other tab, and here you can add extra units. So right now it is using the default millimeter unit, but if you want to change it, check this box and you can use a different unit just for that dimension. For example, now it's using inches. So if you just want to do that for whatever reason, you can do it here. So I'll just change it back to millimeter. I don't want that. Also, if you want to change the font, just uncheck this and change the font from this box. So right now it is using the font as defined in the template. Now this dimension is going to drive your geometry, but if you want to do it other way around, check this driven box, and now changing the geometry will change the dimension. If you want to make this dimension only read only, check this box, and then the dimension cannot be modified and it will remain a read only dimension. I'll uncheck both of these. Finally, if you want to add dual dimensioning, which means if you want to add feet as well as inch dimension, then that option is on the value tab. So right here we have dual dimensioning. Check this box to activate dual dimensioning, and now you can see that we have values in mm, which is the main value, and then again in inches inside this square bracket. So that's the value right here. You can even control the precision of this dual dimensioning from here if you want to. So I'll uncheck this dual dimensioning. Now all of these settings are available for every single dimension, and some of these settings can also be changed directly from this dimension. So in this case, you can select your dimension and then click on these small dots to change its direction, and you can do that for this dimension as well. So there are some settings that you can change from here as well. Apart from that, you can select your dimension and associate this one with some other geometry. For example, you can just grab this point and then associate it with this point, and still it will drive the geometry. So if I now double click here and change it to, let's say, 22, it will change the geometry. So in this way, you can associate your same dimension with different points simply by moving the points on your dimension. And that's all about using dimensions in SolidWorks.
These are premium educational videos that are usually paid, but I'm sharing them for free on YouTube. Subscribe and support the channel.